Have you ever felt like your marriage, your love, or even your English learning was stuck in a dead end, to the point you just wanted to give up? This video tells a story that might change how you see yourself. A quiet summer start. Imagine living in Denmark, where summer light lingers until midnight, yet inside your home, silence feels heavier than darkness. It's not about the lack of light, but about two people who once loved each other and now have nothing left to say. A summer that begins not with seaside trips or family laughter, but with cold silence between husband and wife that if you've ever studied English and felt your motivation vanish, you'll understand this feeling. It always starts with excitement, a new book, a fresh app, a big goal. But soon, the thrill fades. Day by day, you look at your books, your phone, and feel nothing but heaviness. Marriage and language learning share this truth. When left in silence, they wither. Neuroscience shows that your brain hates empty repetition without emotion. Without laughter, sharing, or little sparks of dopamine, your brain treats a relationship, or your English learning, like an old song stuck on repeat. And slowly, silence takes over. I end this story. The husband and wife sit together in their small Copenhagen apartment, but it feels like they live on different planets. They still do the usual things: make coffee, read the paper, go to work, yet their eyes no longer meet. You might see the same in your own English practice, opening the book, reading a few lines, while your mind drifts elsewhere. The truth is, a quiet summer like this can kill a marriage or your belief in yourself. But sometimes, that silence is a warning. You're neglecting what matters most. And honestly, losing laughter in the kitchen can be more dangerous than losing grammar skills. Basically, the lights are still on in the house, but the hearts inside are already switching off. Arguments over small things. Have you ever noticed how the tiniest things explode when there's already tension in the air? A spoon left in the sink suddenly feels like betrayal. A wrong brand of milk from the supermarket turns into a courtroom drama. That's exactly what happened in this Danish couple's summer. At first, it was about laundry. He folded the towels the wrong way. She rolled her eyes, and silence stretched even longer. Then it was about dinner. He wanted rye bread, she wanted pasta. You'd think two adults could solve it, but when love runs on empty, even butter versus olive oil becomes a battle of pride. It works the same with learning English. You tell yourself, I only made one small mistake. Why does it matter? But your brain, already frustrated, shouts, see? You'll never get it. One mispronounced word feels like proof of total failure. Psychologists call this the negativity bias. Our minds exaggerate the small bad things and shrink the good. So a single stumble overshadows 10 little wins. Back to Copenhagen. Every evening at their kitchen table became a silent war zone. Why didn't you wash the coffee mugs? Why are you late again? Each word carried the weight of years of unspoken resentment. It wasn't about mugs or clocks. It was about the fear that maybe they had already lost each other. Think about it. When you fight with English, is it really the grammar's fault? Or is it the hidden doubt whispering, maybe I'm not good enough? In relationships and in learning, the fight is rarely about the surface problem. It's about the fear beneath it, and here's the cruel irony. the smaller the argument, the louder it echoes. Because what you're really asking isn't, did you forget the milk? It's, do I still matter to you? Basically, the kitchen sink was never about dishes, it was about survival. The cold kitchen table. Picture this, the kitchen table, usually the heart of a Danish home, now feels like an ice block. Dinner is on the plates, maybe fried fish, maybe potatoes, but the taste has disappeared. They sit across from each other, chewing, pretending food is enough, when in truth they're swallowing loneliness. Silence at a dinner table is louder than shouting. The clinking of forks becomes a soundtrack of defeat. She scrolls her phone to avoid his eyes. He stares at the wall as if it has better conversation. The chairs creak, but no one dares to speak. This is not just silence, it's absence, and absence burns deeper than anger. Learning English can feel exactly like this table. You open the book, press play on the audio, read the sentences. But nothing tastes. You repeat words without flavor, you copy sounds without meaning. And the worst part? You convince yourself, maybe this is just who I am, someone who can't connect, can't speak, can't feel. Psychologists call this emotional withdrawal. When humans feel hopeless, they don't always scream, often, they just stop. In marriages, it's the silent meals. In English, it's the unopened notebook sitting on your desk, day after day. Your brain quietly shuts the door before you even notice it's locked. In that Copenhagen apartment, the table was no longer a place of family. It was a battlefield where nothing happened, which is somehow worse than fighting. Because when you're fighting, at least you care. But when you're silent, that's when the soul starts to pack its bags, and here's the knife twist. Sometimes the quietest room is where love dies the loudest. Lonely walks in the city. Copenhagen in summer is supposed to be magical. Streets buzzing with bicycles, coffee shops spilling warmth onto sidewalks, canals glittering under the Nordic sun. But for her, walking alone through that beauty felt like walking inside a museum where everything is alive. Except her. She wandered through Nyhavn, past the colorful houses tourists adore, yet the colors seemed muted. She watched couples laughing on their bikes, friends clinking glasses of Carlsberg by the water, but all she heard was the echo of her own footsteps. The city was alive. She was a ghost. That's the cruel part of loneliness. It doesn't need you to be alone. You can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still feel invisible. Psychologists call it perceived isolation. Your brain registers distance even when bodies are near. It's like trying to learn English in a crowded class, but every word feels like it belongs to someone else. Never to you. She stopped at a bakery. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls, kanelsnegel, usually her comfort, did nothing this time. She bought one, but it tasted like cardboard. And isn't that exactly what happens when you lose motivation in English? Words that once felt sweet now taste like nothing. You repeat them, you chew them, but your heart is gone. Walking through Copenhagen alone, she realized it wasn't just the marriage that felt broken. It was her sense of self. Without connection, even the most beautiful city becomes wallpaper. Without progress, even the simplest English word becomes noise, and the irony? The loneliest part of her walk wasn't the empty sidewalks. It was the thought that someone once promised to walk beside her forever, and now, even with all these people around, she still had no one. Basically, Copenhagen was bursting with life, but she was the only thing not breathing. A letter never sent. One quiet night, he sat at the desk in their small Copenhagen apartment, the glow of a single lamp casting long shadows. The city outside was calm, bicycles locked, cafes closed, but inside his head, a storm raged. And so he began to write. Not a love note. Not a grocery list. A letter. A letter that began with, "Maybe it's time we let go." His handwriting shook. Every sentence felt like pulling out a piece of himself. He wrote about the silence at the dinner table. The pointless arguments about milk and laundry. The way they passed each other like strangers in their own home. He wrote that maybe divorce was the only way left to breathe, and yet, when the words were on paper, he froze. He folded the letter. Slipped it into a drawer. Closed it, as if closing the drawer could close the pain. He couldn't give it to her. Not yet. Because deep down, a flicker of doubt remained. What if there was still something worth saving? Isn't that the same drawer where your broken English notebooks live? You know the one, pages half filled, exercises abandoned. You almost threw them away, certain you'd never improve. But something stopped you. Because even if your brain screams, "Quit," your heart whispers, "Not yet." Maybe there's still hope. Psychologists call this the approach-avoidance conflict, the tug-of-war between wanting to escape pain and wanting to hold on to possibility. His letter was both an ending and a maybe. Just like your notebook, both a record of failure and a quiet promise that you're not done. That he stared at the drawer, his hand trembling on the handle. He didn't know it then, but not sending that letter would change everything, because sometimes the most powerful words are the ones you never deliver. The rainy afternoon. It was a typical Danish summer day, the kind where the sky looks undecided, a little sun, a little gray. Then suddenly, the clouds opened and rain came pouring down. Not a gentle drizzle, but a soaking storm that left cyclists scrambling for shelter and shopkeepers rushing to pull in displays. She was walking home, umbrella forgotten, when she spotted him across the street. By instinct, they both ducked under the same narrow shop awning. For the first time in weeks, they stood close, shoulder to shoulder, the rain drumming above them like a relentless metronome. At first, silence. Just the sound of water hitting cobblestones. Then, almost awkwardly, he laughed, a small, nervous laugh. She turned, surprised, and for a split second, they weren't enemies, just two soaked humans stuck under the same roof. And that's the strange magic of storms. Psychologists call it a pattern interrupt, when something unexpected jolts the brain out of its usual loops. The rain forced them to pause the arguments, the silence, the cold dinners. With nowhere to go, they started talking. Not about divorce, not about failure. Just simple things. The weather. The smell of wet asphalt. The way Copenhagen looked softer in the rain. It's the same with English. Sometimes you need a storm, something unpredictable to break your routine. A random podcast, a silly YouTube video, a stranger who asks for directions. That sudden break can trick your brain into speaking before doubt has time to build walls. And in that moment, you're alive again, back under the awning. Their voices felt strange at first, like trying on old clothes. But slowly, the words came easier. She even smiled. He noticed the way her hair stuck to her cheek, the way her eyes softened when she forgot to be angry. And for a heartbeat, the distance shrank. Basically, it wasn't the rain that saved them. It was the reminder that storms can wash silence clean. The realization. When the rain finally eased, they didn't rush home. Instead, they lingered, watching puddles ripple as bicycles rolled past. Something about being stranded together had cracked the ice. Their conversation drifted from weather to memories. That first summer trip to Aarhus, the burnt pancakes that became an inside joke, the silly Danish Christmas sweater he once wore just to make her laugh, and then it hit them. The love hadn't vanished. It was still there, buried under dishes, arguments, and silence. Psychologists call this inattentional blindness. When you're so focused on what's wrong, you stop noticing what's right. They had been staring at flaws so intensely, they became blind to the years of tenderness still holding them together. Think about your English practice. You obsess over every mispronounced th, every forgotten word, until you forget the truth. You can already understand more than you used to. You've grown. You've changed. The progress is there, your eyes just haven't been looking at it. He realized the letter in his drawer wasn't a solution. It was a monument to hopelessness. What mattered wasn't leaving, it was remembering. She realized her lonely walks through Copenhagen weren't about being unloved. They were about forgetting to notice the love still standing quietly beside her. As they talked, their words weren't polished. They stumbled, repeated, hesitated. But every word was real. And isn't that the whole point? Whether in love or in English, perfection isn't what saves you. Presence does. Showing up does. Speaking anyway does. Basically, the truth wasn't that their love had died. It was that their focus had. Choosing us again. The next morning, something shifted. Nothing dramatic, no flowers, no grand speeches, just a small decision. He made coffee and, instead of placing her cup silently on the table, he said, "Good morning." Simple words, but after weeks of silence, they felt revolutionary. She looked up, startled, then smiled. It was the first genuine smile in months. That day, they didn't fix everything. They still had the same problems: bills, dishes, different opinions on pasta versus rye bread. But now they began with small acts: a touch on the shoulder while passing in the kitchen, a shared laugh over burnt toast, a walk together through Copenhagen, this time side by side. Psychologists call this behavioral activation, tiny positive actions that slowly rebuild trust and connection. It's not magic, it's momentum. The same rule applies to English. You don't save your learning by waiting for motivation to strike like lightning. You save it by choosing one small action daily, listening to 5 minutes of audio, repeating one phrase out loud, writing one simple sentence. Each little effort is a vote for the person you want to become. Their marriage didn't transform overnight, but they chose again, and again, and again. To argue less about the milk and talk more about the day. To replace silence with words, even clumsy ones. To see each other not as enemies, but as partners stumbling toward the same future, and maybe that's the secret. Love and language are both choices you keep making, not once, but every day. So, if you've been ready to give up, on marriage, on English, on yourself, maybe ask, what if it's still worth saving?